Welcome back to Math Class, Hampton and Clarion. Today's lesson is going to be all about how to tell time. So, in front of me, I'm sure you all can tell that this is a clock. This is called an analog clock. What do you notice about this analog clock? Yes, it has numbers, it has lines, it has hands, 2 of them. It has little small numbers and it has larger numbers as well. Sometimes on analog clocks, you will see dots and not lines. Down here, this part of the clock, this will be called a digital clock. As you can see, you will be able to see the actual digits on the clock. Okay. But we're going to talk more about the analog clock today. What do you think these lines stand for on an analog clock? Yes, these lines also represent numbers. When we're working with clocks, we talk about seconds, we talk about minutes, we talk about hours. Those things measure time. What are some other measures of time what else can we use to measure time? What tools? Yes, a calendar measures time, a stopwatch measures time, a microwave oven or the clock on your stove measures time, an iPhone measures time. All of those things are measures of time, or tools you can use to measure time. So today's tool we're going to use is a clock. So like I said, the clock has 2 hands. We have a minute hand and we also have an hour hand. The hour hand is the short hand. That's how you can always remember the hour hand. The hour hand is short. The minute hand is long. We don't want to say the long hand. We say the minute hand, but we know that the minute hand is long. That's how you can tell the difference between the 2 of them. So with that being said, the minute hand moves around the clock 60 minutes and then it becomes the next hour. So there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, 60 minutes in 1 hour, and there are 24 hours in 1 day. When the minute hand moves, it moves by each minute. So as you can see, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So forth and so on. Once the minute hand goes all the way around the clock and gets back to the 12, it's the next hour. As you can see, before we were in the 8 o'clock hour. Now we're in the 9 o'clock hour because the minute hand went around the clock 60 minutes. It is not the next hour, although sometimes when you see the clock, for example, if I do this, you might see that the clock is really close to the 10. Sometimes it's on the 10. And you might think it's in the 10 o'clock hour, but it's not because, again, the minute hand has not reached the 12. Once the minute hand reaches the 12, we are in the next hour. 12 on a clock stands for o'clock, 60 minutes or o'clock. Sometimes you might hear people say half past. When they say half past, that means 30. Okay? So again, when the hour hand is in between the 10 and the 11, or in between 2 numbers, it's always still in the hour before. So if you're looking at this, we're still in the 10 o'clock hour. If I were to turn it like this, We are in the 11 o'clock hour because, again, the minute hand has yet to reach the 12. Now we're at 12 o'clock. All right. So again, those are the important things that you need to know when you're using an analog clock to tell time. You need to know that the dots or the lines represent numbers, that the big numbers on the clock, you count by fives. There's no such thing as, well, there are 12 hours on the clock. So 12 hours for the AM and 12 hours for the PM, which will equal 24 hours in a day. Okay, so there's no such thing as 13 o'clock, 15 o'clock. It goes up to 12, and then it goes back around for the next 12 hours. We talked about the minute hand. We talked about the hour hand. Remember that it's not the next hour until the minute hand has gone around the clock for 60 minutes. And the larger numbers not only represent the minutes, but they also represent hours. So if the minute hand was on the 1, that would stand for 5 minutes. But if the hour hand was on the 1, that means 1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I can use the back to turn. Now we're at 5 o'clock. Turn it this way so you all can see. 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Again, the 12 on the clock stands for o'clock or means o'clock. 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 11 o'clock. And when both the minute and the hour hand are on the 12, that stands for 12 o'clock. Okay? So again, before we start today's lesson, I just want to make sure you all know the essential parts of an analog clock. So the numbers can represent minutes and hours. The numbers are counting by fives when we're talking about minutes. The clock has 2 hands, the minute hand and the hour hand. The hour hand is the long hand. The minute hand is the the hour hand is the short hand. The minute hand is the long hand. Again, when the hour hand is in between 2 numbers, it's still in the hour before. It's not in the next hour until the minute hand has gone around the clock for 60 minutes, and then that becomes the next hour. And remember, there are so many different tools we can use to measure time. If you have a clock in your house, I want you to preferably practice telling time on an analog clock. All right. You can actually make an analog clock as well. It's very easy. You can take a paper plate. You can cut out 2 hands. Maybe get a pen, something to put in between the 2 hands, and practice moving the hands around so that you will be able to have more practice with telling time. So I'm going to stop this video here, and then we're going to come back. And once we come back, we are going to practice telling time to the nearest 5 minutes.